Welcome to the Period Besties Podcast with Stasha and Katie. Think about it as chatting with your best friends about all the TMI stuff you've never talked about before with two period coaches who've been helping hormones collectively for over 20 years now. I'm Stasha.
And I'm Katie, and we're pulling back the curtain on what it's like in the world of menstrual coaching. From puberty to menopause and everything in between, we're here to show you how period coaching can save the day. We'll share practical tips and information you can put to immediate use to improve your hormones and happiness.
We're removing the mystery, ending the taboo, and shining a light on just how powerful period coaching can be.
So whether you need period coaching or are considering becoming a period coach yourself, these episodes are going to help you. We'll share stories, coach live on air, and bring smart, savvy guests to share their wisdom too. Let's start today's episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Period Besties Podcast and our Back to School, Back to Health series, where we're sharing our favorite things to eat at mealtime, because we also need inspiration and reminders of different things that we can cook that taste good, that are easy to make. And today we're talking all about dinner, which I feel like is almost, even though it's the end of the day, it's almost the easiest meal to make for us because we're all eating together. No one's trying to leave the house to go to camp or just go to school. Lunch, you have to pause workday to make sure you're eating. So I feel like dinner is always a constant in our house. But still, I'm sure you feel this way too, Stasha. You get into a rut and you're like, I don't like anything. Just tell me what to eat. So we're going to share some of our favorite meals that we make that are also easy, that hopefully you can try and spice up your fall, winter meals.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge fan of we talked about batch cooking and then having things to choose from. So I really love having a few different things where it's okay, we can have stew or a slice of lasagna, or these are the things that are in the refrigerator right now. And I definitely have to say that dinner is hugely in flow. It is a really big inflow meal for me. So we very often have plant-based dinners in my follicular and ovulation phases. And then somewhere in mid-luteal, it really changes over to, I need to have some really big proteins, some red meats, that kind of thing. So we definitely move from, say, your 3-bean stew in follicular to the bison chili in deep luteal or menstrual. So we definitely have some favorites. Tacos. Hands down, you say taco and everyone, yeah, just do that. That's exactly what we want. So we do a lot of tacos in the house. That is 100% an easy go-to. We make a big batch of taco something. So it might be a rotisserie chicken that I just add taco spices to and let cook, or a bunch of beans, or ground turkey, or ground meat, depending on where I am in my cycle. And then just pull it out and add some salsa, some cheese, some lettuce, and we've got tacos. Easy peasy meal that both of us enjoy endlessly. So that's one of our absolute go-tos. We probably have tacos every week, at least once or twice.
I love that. My husband would love to join you. He always wants to eat tacos or some sort of Mexican food. I'm trying to think, because we're also heading into the fall. And even though the fall and winter are not my favorite seasons in terms of, I just don't like to be colder. Mm-hmm. I love the food in the fall and the winter. I love soups and stews and chilies and anything in the crock pot. I love potatoes. I always want tons of potatoes in the fall and the winter. More root vegetables as well. And this time of the year, it just feels good to eat more warm, nourishing foods. And again, thinking about your cycle, we are in the fall going into the luteal phase. So those foods are also great for that phase, those root vegetables, those more hearty foods, but also soups and stews and chilies because they're easier to digest as well as we're moving through our cycle and then the cycle of the seasons as well. I think that chili is one of the biggest things that we make, and turkey, bison, whatever, maybe just like bean chili, like some veggie chili, but we make chili at least once a week in the crock pot. Love, love, love it. We also make this like delicious gluten-free lasagna that Jim has definitely tweaked. We finally found like the right gluten-free noodles.
Yeah.
When we had you and Chris over for dinner, the noodles were like really hard. And we're like, okay, these noodles are not right. So we finally found them. They're in the refrigerated section. So much better. So we do a lot of that and just add tons and tons of vegetables. And pesto is the magic sauce with that dish. My boys will eat anything that has pesto in it. So we're getting them pasta because they love pasta, but then lots and lots of veggies, and they eat it because of the pasta and the pesto and all of that. So we do a lot of like hearty meals like that, which is easy because you can make a huge dish of it. And depending on my boys' appetite, I feel like it depends on if they had lots of snacks that day or if they're super hungry. We hopefully have leftovers, or we make that in the crock pot too. Yeah. And putting in the crock pot makes the pasta even more like it melts in your mouth. It's so delicious. I'm getting hungry just talking about it. But we're big turkey meatball people, or bison meatball. We also make that in the air fryer. Air fryer is also one of our best friends. We do bison burgers a lot all year, but even more in the winter in that luteal, deep luteal phase. I need my iron.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Once it gets to be winter, I have the monthly lasagna and I make it in luteal so that it is ready to go in deep luteal and menstrual. And I do a big crock pot of sauce. So I make the sauce. I just am a snob when it comes to marinara, and I have to make my own. So I make my own sauce in the crock pot, but then I have a bunch left over. So I have enough for the lasagna that I make and then is ready to come out when I need it. And then I have a bunch of the marinara sauce left over. So it's easy for lunches to just toss a little bit of pasta in and have an easy, quick lunch that just sort of was extras from making lasagnas for dinner, or a meal in between. So we ran out of lasagna and we're like, we got a little bit of the sauce left. So let's do meatballs and a side salad or something. So we do enjoy that. I have to say, one of my favorite things about the moving into the back to school, fall, winter things is all of the squashes and sweet potatoes. I love adding pumpkin to things. I love adding sweet potatoes to things. They're so easy to add in and they make things feel so warm. It has that little bit of sweetness that really helps stave off the sugar cravings, especially knowing that Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas are coming up and I'm going to sugar binge on all of those. So trying to keep the sugar to a minimum in these transition months so that I can a little less guiltily have my sweets over the holidays. So just baked sweet potatoes with a little bit of that marinara that's left over on top, or a little bit of the chili that's left over on top, makes a meal for me. And it's easy enough to do for dinner. It's easy enough to do for lunch, especially if you just bake a whole bunch of sweet potatoes, toss them in the fridge, and then you have these really great, easy to make simple meals that you can just pull out, add a little of the leftover sauce, a little of the leftover chili, and you have to me, that's a full meal. I mean, it's got protein, it's got fiber, it's got good fats. So yeah, a little butter, or depending on how you make your marinara, I use a good healthy dose of olive oil in mine. A lot. And then maybe even dice some avocado on top, or some cheese on top, or a little sour cream or yogurt or something like that. And absolutely an easy, delicious meal that you just change it from leftover chilies, leftover marinara, leftover pesto, leftover whatever's, and you have a different meal, even though it's kind of the same concept. It's like tacos to me. It's such an easy thing to do over and over again, but you don't get bored with it. And I love a stuffed pumpkin. It sounds crazy pants, but it's actually not all that hard. You have to bake it, but you're not standing there watching it bake. You bake the pumpkin And then we do, one of my favorites is spicy sausage, beans, cornbread, and kale. Just sort of mash it up together, throw an egg in there or a couple eggs in there, and then you just stuff it into the pumpkin. So I pre-cook it basically beforehand and then just sort of bake it all together once everything is mostly baked. So then there's just this last bit of baking to finish the egg off in. So good. But I've made it for vegan Thanksgivings with family members where we just omit the spicy sausage bit and the egg. So I made vegan cornbread. I used a ton of beans, a ton of greens, dark leafy greens. I threw a little arugula in there to give it some of that spice that the spicy sausage normally gives us. So I had a little bit of kick to it with the arugula and a little chili. So I've made it for vegans. I've made it for meat eaters. I've made it for everyone. I've done so many different things. I've done mushroom and bean. I've done buckwheat. I've done so many different things in there. And it's always a crowd pleaser. Everyone always goes, oh my God, that looks amazing. Because it's just beautiful pumpkin. And then you slice it and all this goodness falls out. And everyone's just, oh my God, that looks incredible. And it's so delicious. And it's cheap ingredients. That's another reason I love taking it to events because it's so cheap to put together, even gluten-free, that it makes it such an easy thing to like be very generous. No, keep the leftovers. Absolutely. Eat them if there are any. I rarely are there leftovers. It goes really quickly. And one of the things that I do like about it is around Thanksgiving, we often do it as sort of a tribute to the Native Americans that were here before us. So it's the three sisters in one dish. And it's got the corn, the beans, the squash. And so it's kind of our nod to the fact that we're here on this land and we had that help when we got started. So we love it. It's delicious. It's something that we have until the pumpkins are gone in the stores and we eat them constantly.
You need to send me the recipe. I've had something like that at a restaurant once, and I always was like, this looks amazing. I guess I didn't really think about how easy it could be to make. So please send the recipe. Maybe we need to share it with everybody because that just sounds amazing, honestly. And when you were talking about squashes, all I could think about was a few things. Spaghetti squash. We love a good spaghetti squash.
Yes.
With some meatballs. I'm more pesto than marinara.
I don't like the marinara with the spaghetti squash, but like an Alfredo, a pesto, something cheesy, I'm in.
Yeah, we do lots of pesto, lots of cheese. So easy too. And the boys love it because they're literally eating out of the little bowl that we created with the spaghetti squash. We also add pumpkin to chili a lot. One of our favorite things to do is like a pumpkin chili because it's like you've got the heat and then the sweet just tastes delicious. And I was thinking just squashes in general are just like easy ways to get more fiber in. And you just bake them. Like you said, you put it in, you leave it, it's good. You just want to make sure it's soft enough. But you can add them to anything. And a lot of times with sweet potatoes too, we'll literally use that as the base and just add what you're talking about on top of it because you're just getting more fiber. And I love sweet potatoes, but all year, but there's something about sweet potatoes in the fall that I just want all the time. So I just love potatoes. If I could eat a potato every day, I'd be happy. Like I love potatoes.
Same. I joke. It's the Polish and the English in me. They're both potato fans. So I'm as white can be. And we love our potatoes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm German and Russian.
Yeah.
That's what you eat. You eat potatoes. I'm a meat and potato girl.
I butternut squash is another one that I love to get in the winters. And obviously there's the butternut squash soup, easy to do, delicious, especially if you get it like pre-cut and ready to go, or you can just buy butternut squash soup for cheap these days. But I also quite like doing a butternut squash chili where we use white beans and turkey. So it's like a white chili, but it has that lighter kind of orange and white from the butternut squash and the white beans. And that's a really fun one. And delicata squash. I am obsessed with delicata squash. I have been obsessed for years and it continues every year. Every year I think, okay, this year I'm going to get over it. And I don't. I just buy them by the armload. And last year we had random delicatas just growing out of the compost pile and I just let them grow and I ate a ton of them. I love them so much. But one of the things that I like about delicata squash is you can eat the skin. It's really easy. You can just dice it, roast it, and then toss it with anything. And one of my favorites is the delicata squash tossed with I don't know, like a spiral pasta or something. We're gluten-free people over here, so something that's easy that holds up well. And then arugula, Parmesan, and pomegranate seeds.
Yeah, I love the pomegranate in the fall.
It's like a warm salad. The heat off the roasted delicata and the pasta helps to wilt the arugula a little arugula in there. It just becomes this beautiful green and red from the pomegranate seeds. It's gorgeous. It looks beautiful. And it's just so good and so delicious. Several times in the fall, we make that one.
Is that the squash that's green?
Yeah, it's like oval shaped and it's white and green stripes.
Like the stripes? Yes. Okay.
In there. Yeah, they're little. They're usually quite cheap, especially at like Trader Joe's or.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I've ever tried one.
Oh, so good. I mean, they taste like a squash. They taste like your pumpkin, your butternuts. They have that nice sweet caramely flavor to them. But yeah, you can eat the skin, so you don't have to deal with the peeling or scraping or anything. You can just dice it up. I usually slice it in half and then quarter. So in half and half. So I slice it into quarters, and then I do maybe half an inch thick slices. So they're just little quarter moons. Put it on a pan with coconut oil, a little salt, roasty toasty, and then toss it all up with everything. And then even throwing in the seed cycling seeds is really delicious with this. Before I even had known about seed cycling, I would throw pumpkin seeds in there or sesame seeds in there or whatever I had on, sunflower seeds, whatever I had on hand. I would just throw a bunch of seeds in there because the crunchy with the pomegranate seeds was just so nice. And it gave it some extra protein, especially because the only protein usually is from the cheese. I throw in a lot of Parmesan in there. Though you could throw other things in there. You could throw ground turkey would be really good in it. Beans, I think kidney beans, pinto beans would be really good in there as well. But yeah, I just like it as kind of a lighter meal. So it often ends up being my kind of follicular phase in the winter because it's still warm, but it's lighter. It doesn't have the heavy chili. It doesn't have the heaviness to it. So it often ends up being a follicular ovulation meal for me in the winters, especially with the arugula. Gives that kind of almost springtimey feel, even though it's nice and toasty and warm for winter.
I love arugula. I think that's like my favorite green right now. I just add it to everything.
Same.
The other thing I was going to say too is bone broth. Like all I want to do is drink bone broth in the winter. So we add it chicken noodle soup or whatever we're making. Even we love white chili too, white bean chili. So I'll add it to that. But I just drink that in the afternoon. I know we mentioned it last episode too with lunch or snacks. Can't remember which one it was, but it's so nourishing and it feels so grounding. It's one of my favorite things to incorporate I feel like as soon as the weather drops even a tiny bit, I'm like, okay, give me all the bone broth.
We do the chicken soup with turmeric and ginger. And so I make a giant pot, whole chicken, bone broth as the broth for it. And then a ton of turmeric and a ton of ginger in there. And I find myself just scooping a cup, like a mug out of there and just drinking that broth sometimes. And I think this year might be the year that I make a batch of just the turmeric ginger bone broth for me. Often I like to keep it without anything in it because we give it to the dog as well. So I try not to cook the bone broth with onions or garlic or anything in it for her. But the chicken soup, you need onions and garlic. So this might be the year where I actually make my own just side bone broth. It's not for sharing with the pup, but just for me. I have been addicted to it. And in fact, it's one of the warm foods that made it through the whole summer and is going to make it through the whole winter that we just keep around and on hand. And it has been such a good one, especially with just the copious amounts of ginger and turmeric in it. It's become a real luteal favorite for me. I feel like I'm getting in all those good anti-inflammatories preemptively. And then I start taking like the turmeric capsules or whatever as I get closer to my period. But it's step one. the turmeric ginger chicken soup. And then we add in the medicinal doses of ginger and turmeric for the endo as it kind of creeps up closer.
So good. I'm going to try that this year too. I love those two flavors together. It's one of the best, I feel like. I drink lots of tea in the fall and winter as well, more than the summer. It's just so hot here. I'm like, I can't drink anymore. Can't have any more heat. But I love doing a ginger lemon tea. I was also going to say before I forgot, I love a good stir fry in the fall and winter too. And it's so easy because you're either just chopping all the veggies, or you can actually just buy chopped stir fry veggies now at most grocery stores. Put them in a pan with some good avocado oil, coconut oil, and add whatever protein you want to that. Super easy. And just make a ton of it, and you can have it for lunch the next day. And sometimes I'll even add that to something else. Like I'll make a bowl and just add the stir-fried veggies to the bowl.
Yeah.
Which is good too.
Yeah. We do roasted sheets of veggies in the winter. So Spark Joy Sunday, one of those things in the winters is just multiple trays of veggies, a good couple of casserole dishes of cauliflower and broccoli, and one that's onions and garlic, and one that's carrots and squash, and just sort of make 3-4 pans, sheets of roasted veggies, and then throw them, once they cool down, throw them in like a plastic baggie even, and just toss them in the fridge. And so then throughout the whole week, when it's time for dinner, it's so easy to just go, okay, we're going to make tacos, grab a fistful of roasted veggies out, and we'll have those on the side. Or we're going to have chili, grab a fistful of the roasted veggies and put it on top. Or we're going to do a Buddha bowl, throw a fistful of the roasted veggies on top. So especially if you're struggling in the winter to get your vegetables in, just spending again, it doesn't take a lot of time, especially if you buy them pre-cut or pre-chopped. But if you just want to spend a little bit of time roasting veggies, and you can roast them whole as well. A lot of them you can roast just straight whole on a sheet. You do not have to do a ton of prep for, and then you just have them ready to go. And a lot of things are easier to cut. Like I never peel a squash, like a butternut squash. No. Never peel it. I always just throw them in half, cut it in half, throw it in, roast it, and then it scoops out really easily. Rarely you'll see me doing anything like peeling a squash or any of that stuff. That's what the cooking process is for.
That's how we make apple pie too. We put the whole apple in. We're not peeling apples for apple pie.
Same.
We also do something similar. We will roast veggies, and we'll also kind of like put a protein in there too. So one pan meal. So both sides are veggies, and then the center is a protein.
Oh, nice.
So we'll do something similar. But I would even say Pinterest is a great place to feel inspired. Don't think that your meals have to look like Pinterest meals, but whenever I'm in a rut, I'll just type in what I'm looking for, like chicken dish or something random. And I'll get thousands of different ideas, and one of them will look easy enough for me to try. And if everyone likes it, we'll add it into rotation. And something else that we do a lot too is we add a lot of apples to dishes or fall fruit as well. Like you mentioned pomegranates. We like to add, there's a really yummy chicken dish that it's roasted baked apples with chicken. So yummy. And then cabbage. And you put it all together, and it's like lots of really different tastes happening there. It's delicious, but it feels really grounding as well for the winter versus, I don't know, I just love apples in the winter, fall too.
Yeah. There's a lot of Polish dishes that have apples in it, or stewed fruits as part. And French as well. Chris is French, so we'll go through some old French recipes and pull them out. And I always giggle at the overlap when I see it between the French and the Polish cooking, because the French definitely have their sauces. For sure.
The love their butter.
Fake.
A lot of really delicious ideas, I think, for everyone to start with. Let us know what you think. I would just say meal prep, meal plan. Make it as easy as you possibly can. Please don't overthink it. As long as it tastes good, it doesn't matter what it looks like. That is my motto.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about the things that you particularly enjoy in each phase of your cycle, just lean into it and have fun with it. It's funny how I see so many clients who will say, I was kind of eating with flow now that I realize it, but now I'm really leaning into it and I feel a lot better. So maybe just even take a look at what you already like and see how it's playing out with your cycle, and then just lean into it and have fun.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Perfect. All right. We'll see everybody in the next episodes where we're going to get into desserts. So stay tuned for that. Bye for now. A big shout out and thank you to our sponsors for today's episode, Period Coaching School and Katie Bresek Wellness.
Thanks to you, our favorite bestie, for listening to the Period Besties Podcast, where no topic is TMI. And of course, share this episode with your besties.
Remember to leave us a 5-star review, nothing less than the best for us besties, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can follow us on Instagram at Stasha Washburn and at Katie Bresek, or email us at periodbestiespodcast@gmail.com.
Check out more about us at katiebresek.com and periodcoachingschool.com. And of course, check the show notes for free goodies and extras that support this episode.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye for now, besties.